start with prayer. Father, it's so good to be able to get together, know that you're here with us with your word, to be able to study and to learn more about you. Thank you for the ones that are here, Father. Just bless them and their households, and be with us. Help us to have an open mind and hear from you tonight. We ask in Jesus' name. Okay, I have Mark chapter 28 in Genesis, so that's where we're going to start. Patsy said that was right also, so she's always right.
She had the benefit of videotape too,
Yeah.
if she wanted it.
So this is when Jacob leaves his family and goes to Mesopotamia, and that's Haran, where Abraham come from, and Abraham's brother Nahor still lives there, and that is Laban's father, I think. Isn't it, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, all right, chapter 28. And Isaac called Jacob, well, before we start that, remember that Rebekah has already fooled Isaac into thinking that he's sending Jacob away to get a wife, and that's true, he does, but Esau has threatened to kill Jacob. So that's why Rebekah told Isaac to have him go to Haran. And of course, they didn't want him marrying a wife of the Canaanites. Okay, 28:1. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, the mother's father, and take thee a wife thence of the daughter of Laban, thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, that thou mayst be multitude of people, and give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee and thy seed with thee, and thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. Think about the Abrahamic covenant and how many times you hear something from the Abrahamic covenant. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. And now we switch to Esau. When Esau saw Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Padan Aram to take him a wife from there, and that he blessed him and gave him a charge, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughter of Canaan. And in chapter 27, it talks about taking a wife, well, that's 40, verse 46 and 27, of the daughters of Heth. Heth and Canaan are the same people. And Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, and was gone to Padan Aram. And Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not his father, he went to then went Esau unto Ishmael, and took unto him wife that he had. Remember, he's already has two wives, so this makes the third one. And her name is Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nabat, to be his wife. Questions or comments? What's going on? Okay. Anyhow, they sent him to Haran, a town, I guess, called Padan Aram. I never have found that one. Okay, verse 10.
Down in Martin County.
Martin County, what?
Go through shoals, turn over.
Okay, verse 10, and Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillow and lay down in the place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascended and descended on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. There's part of the Abrahamic covenant again. And thy seed shall be as dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, and the south. And in thee and thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all thy place whither thou goest, and will bring thee again unto this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to of thee. And Jacob awake out of his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid, and said, How dreadful is this place! This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Is that the way you would describe it, as dreadful? If you had a dream and seen angels and God at the top, and angels ascending, that kind of seemed odd to me.
Mine says, how awesome is this place?
How awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What version you have, Jack?
It's a King James, and it's, but I've got little expository notes under it.
Oh, yeah.
But it does say how inspiring is the place.
Inspiring instead of dreadful.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds better to me. And this is the gate of heaven. What do you think about that? What does that mean?
Well, God is at the top of it, so there must be a gate there, and there must be access to God some way. And there's a lot of angels going up and down this ladder. I'm just kind of curious what they're doing.
Yeah,
A lot of, maybe you can help me out on that, or help us out.
I don't know, and I've quit reading commentaries pretty much. But what that made me think of, Israel is the gate of heaven, is what it meant to me. And where was Christ born? How do you get to heaven? Wide is the gate that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way to life. Anyhow, that's what it made me think of. I don't know whether that has anything to do with it or not.
I don't know if he's speaking in, I don't wouldn't say he's speaking in riddles, but he's speaking maybe to illustrate his point. I don't know if that actual place is the gate of heaven, but maybe
Right.
he's describing what the experience was, and to him it was at that point in time, it was the gate of heaven, because
Yeah.
like Jack said, the angels coming up and down, and God being there in that place at that time. Because later, I mean, this is not the same time he wrestled with the angel, is it?
No,
I mean, that's later in this.
that's later in.
So, and that was kind of a holy place too. I mean, there was a ladder from, a ladder from up, I don't know if there's a ladder there too or not. Anyway,
That's in chapter 32 when he wrestles all night.
it's not clear to me what the purpose of this visit is really, other than to, I guess, let Jacob know he's headed in the right direction.
Yeah. Verse 18, and Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillow and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top called the name of the place Bethel. But the name of the city was called Luz at the first. Bethel is just about 6 miles north of Jerusalem. So that's where he's at, just north of Jerusalem. And Jacob vowed a vow saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. And this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. So in the vow, he mentions 5 different things. And if you have read this before, you know, God had already told him he'd be with him. So he keeps him safe, gives him food, raiment, and he does come again to his father's house in peace.
Don't you think it's interesting though that he puts conditions on God? If God does all of this, then he will be my God. I thought
So-
that was a little brazen of him.
So do you think Jacob is a believer at this time? You shake your head no?
I didn't do nothing.
I was thinking more of the no part until he gets his food and garment from the way it sounds. I could be wrong.
If,
Could he believe in God and not follow him? Because he obviously recognizes the places, or, you know, not. Some of the things he's done up to this point would make you think that he wasn't really doing God's will, just the way he, you know, went about things, and even his mother too. How they lied to get the birthright, and continued to fool Isaac. Anyway.
I don't think he's a believer yet until in chapter 32 when he wrestles all night with the Lord or angel. I think that's when because all the way through this 3 or 4 chapters, he refers to God as the God of Abraham or the God of Isaac. He never calls him his God. It's always Abraham's God. What else? Okay, chapter 29. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. If you know where Haran's at.
Well, can I go back 20?
Sure.
Escaped me. This all, him leaving is all based on a lie too, right? Because there's, you know, he's leaving to get away from Esau, who's threatened to kill him, and Rebecca wants to make sure he didn't get killed because he's her favorite, and so she says, well, we'll tell them you're going to get a wife, which I guess is maybe becomes a secondary purpose for him to go away and not marry the evil Canaanites, the heathen.
Yeah.
But, so it's kind of based on a lie too, because really the main reason he went away is to get away from Esau, the way I remember.
Yep, so right.
Which kind of lends itself to what you're saying about him not being a believer.
I think I was gonna say something about Canaan, but I didn't, you know, we know that God's gonna give him that land, and he's gives them orders to kill all those people. I think that's one reason that, well, not only they wanna keep the bloodline pure in the Jewish race, but you certainly don't wanna hook up with these heathen that they're gonna supposed to destroy when they come across across the Jordan, and God gives to Joshua, and they wipe these people out. So I think there's a point in not for him to take a wife of Canaan too. And then I was gonna jump on what Kelly said there, and I've lost my thoughts, so.
They definitely weren't supposed to intermarry, and, that's, Esau done it out of spite, because he knew that, parents didn't want him to.
Well, that's still important to the Jewish people. Because, I mean, I've talked about this before, but one of my roommates in school was a Jewish person,
Mm-hmm.
and his wife had to convert to Judaism. She was a Christian, and I never could wrap my head around how you do that. But, so I mean, you know, we see that sometimes with Catholics, you have to convert to Catholicism.
Yeah.
But if you're Baptist, you can marry a Methodist, you can marry a Catholic. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Or if you're Catholic and marry a Baptist, we won't make you convert to being a Baptist,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't think so. You would hope that you would, but, and then I have my friend Jonathan, he's married to a Jewish girl, and he never converted, but she, you know, she maintains her Jewishness, right? I mean, she's still Jewish. I don't know that they don't practice either way, but, I mean, they're not church-going people anymore, but I just find that odd that down through the years, I mean, this is in the early, late 80s when I was in school, and that's when that happened. I'm assuming it's the same today. Of course, a lot of Jews don't practice religion at all, and that intermarriage is not a problem for them because they're not where they're supposed to be with the church anyway. So the church, they're Jewish in origin, but not in religion, I guess.
So how does that work? Because she is of the Jewish faith and a Christian.
I think she's going to hell. That's what I think.
Married then.
Because she accepted Christ, and then she basically said, "I don't accept Christ." I mean, that's what I never told her that, but that's what I think. I mean, I hate to be blunt about it, but she's basically denounced Christ as being the Son of God and the Savior, and said that we're still waiting on the Messiah, because that's what Jews are waiting on. So, that's why I could never wrap my head around how you do that.
Yeah, I know.
And she was she was religious too. I mean, she was very, you know,
Very Jewish.
well, she was very religious Christian one.
Christian. Oh, okay.
And then when she knew he was Jewish, obviously, when they started
Yeah,
going out, and then from there, but, anyway, I never could understand.
I don't understand.
I mean, it's easier for me to wrap my head around going from being a Protestant to a Catholic. I mean, because that's, you know, we share some common beliefs, although, but, I can't. I mean, I couldn't do that either, but I could understand more about somebody doing that, because you don't have to renounce Christ and his divinity and his being the Son of God to do that. You might have to do some things that you know, are in our eyes biblical, but anyway, I've talked too much about that.
And, we're on intermarrying. The Jews aren't supposed to marry Gentiles. And today in Israel, the young Jews, I think it's up near 80% are not marrying Jewish people. Male or female, neither. And, you know, that makes me think things are really near, because the Jew cannot go away and the Bible be true and fulfilled. So, they're really. Okay.
She wants to be a part of the conversation.
Apparently Sherry wanted to talk too, I don't know.
But didn't you tell us that religion isn't real important in Israel for the most part? Either Jewish or Protestant.
Right.
The Protestants even less than Jewish. And,
Yeah.
well, that's a fine thing for us to say here in the United States, I guess. I've
listened and read some rabbis, and, you know, attention to what they say. You know, they go right down the line with the Antichrist, being the time that Christ comes the first time, you know, and they're confused and won't look at the New Testament, especially the Orthodox Jews. This is good discussion. Okay, 29 verse 1. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of his people of the east. Why do they call it people of the east when he's going almost due north of Israel, where he's from?
When they originally came from the east.
Right.
The land of Chaldeans, I guess, or.
Yeah. The Chaldeans, anyhow, so they came from probably the east side of the Euphrates, around Baghdad or Babylon, whichever you want to call it. Verse 2, and he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of the well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone away from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put the stone upon the well's mouth in its place. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be you? Where are you from? And they said, Of Haran we are. And he said unto them, Do you know Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said to them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. So, just happenstance, he runs onto these people that know his uncle Laban and all, everything. And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. Why is that verse in there?
Who's talking?
Who's talking?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out when I read that who's talking.
Jacob.
Is Jacob still talking, not the guy he was talking to?
And, anyhow.
Well, they said we know him, so I guess he is being Jacob, okay.
So, I don't understand that, but to me, Jacob's telling them how to tend their herds, and Jacob's been a homeboy, you know, he didn't hunt or anything, he stayed in the house with his mama, sounded like to me. But anyhow, he's telling them it's still high day, it's not time to water your sheep, you should be out pasturing your sheep.
Maybe that was common knowledge, even if you weren't a shepherd, maybe.
That, yeah, it would have been common knowledge, but why is that in there?
My footnote says that Jacob was apparently trying to get the men to leave before Rachel arrived.
But he don't know Rachel yet, he
Wow.
don't know, you know, I know, that's, my footnote says is that we both have Ryrie Bibles, so our footnotes are the same.
Well, it seemed like it'd almost be an insult, right?
What, that's
If
what
I came to your house and said, or where you feed your sheep and said, oh, Jerry, you need to feed them sheep.
Yeah,
I just wandered up on your property and said, are you watering? No, I think that'd be an insult.
yeah,
My footnotes say that Jacob was apparently trying to get the men to leave before Rachel arrived.
that's, that doesn't make sense either, because he doesn't know Rachel yet, but anyhow, that's, they did say that it's Laban's daughter, but he hasn't seen her yet.
And also his first cousin then, right?
Right, his first cousin.
Apparently you don't know her, but they're gonna be kissing cousins and more pretty quick.
Okay, verse 8, and they said, we cannot until all the flock are gathered together, and they roll the stone away. Anyhow, from the well's mouth, then we watered the sheep. And while he yet spoke with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it come to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, and Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Did you think Laban is his mother's brother?
Yeah.
3 times.
Yeah.
Three
Yeah.
times in that verse. So we need to remember that, I think.
I was thinking when the servant was sent to Rebecca, did she have sheep there that she was watering, so he would have had more of a background? Then he watered the servant's camels, so I think there's more background there. And, I can just thought of that Rebecca might have been a shepherd herself. I don't know, I haven't read that for a while, but I think there's a lot of things that he would know about shepherding, even though he was a mama's boy. But
Yeah.
just another thought.
And apparently they were gonna water the sheep where they watered the cattle, is that what I understand you? And were they waiting on, like Jack says, were they waiting on Rachel to get there with her sheep before they water any sheep?
I don't know, that, it didn't all make sense to me. If Jacob could roll the stone away, anybody could have done it, I think.
And I know you kind of said some of this stuff happened in happenstance. I think this is providence, is what I think.
I do too. I was,
Providence of God.
yep. It's all orchestrated.
Yes.
And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother and that he was Rachel's son. And she ran and told her father. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And the kissing, that's the Middle East custom at the time. They family kissed and stuff. I don't think these were.
Kissing cousins, as
Yeah,
Kelly
that's
said.
They
Kelly
weren't
said.
romantic.
And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. Okay, and Laban said to Jacob, because thou art my brother, should thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. The tender-eyed part, I'm not sure what that means. Again, mine, Patsy's Bible has a comment, but I don't go along with it, talking about the sparkle in people's eyes, but I think the next verse, or part of the verse, explains it. Rachel was more beautiful and more favored than Leah.
And I think, I don't disagree with you about commentary, I think sometimes they make things up when they can't figure it out. I mean, and maybe it's God inspired, I don't know, but I've seen enough differences in different commentaries to know that you can't take it chapter and verse and, I think it's a good, we've talked about in Sunday school, it's a good aid to help you come to your own conclusions, but the Bible's the best source of everything, and when you stop at the commentary, sometimes, you stop too soon, I think.
The more I read commentaries, the more I find I disagree with most of them. Okay, verse 18. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel thy younger daughter. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had for her. So, it goes by quick for Jacob because he's looking forward to marrying Rachel. And Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went into her. So we don't understand the darkness that there was then. There wasn't any light except candle and firelight. And whoever he took to her would have been veiled and heavily dressed, the Middle Eastern custom. So it was pretty easy for Laban to pass her off.
Well, even in verse 17, when it talks about how beautiful Rachel and Leah were or weren't, I guess. I mean, what they wouldn't see much of them, right? I mean, today when you see a woman, you see, you know, you see it all, I guess,
Yeah.
for the most part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like you said, they would probably have a big dress on and maybe a veil even covering their head and maybe part of the face, I guess. I assume so.
Yeah.
For the most part, they were obviously more modest than women are today, right? So he wouldn't have seen, I mean, just, you can tell by the description that maybe all he saw was their face and eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, eyes are part of her face, obviously, but.
And the veil would have covered most of it, and I've seen veils that were the net they would have all the way up to their eyes covered with heavy cloth, but then have a net type veil over the top of that veiled their eyes even. Whether it was like that then, but I've seen that in the Middle East dress.
And I wonder what Leah thought of the whole situation.
That's what I wonder, you know, how could she go along with this when she knew that she wasn't exactly what he was expecting?
Well, plus, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know.
I think she had to have some type of, maybe he was a handsome man or something, because, you know, as we go on in further in the lesson, you know, she's in dire straits about him loving her, so maybe there is some attractiveness from, I'm sure, Jacob wasn't an ugly man, obviously, talk about his stature or his face,
Yeah.
but I think there could be some attractiveness from Leah's standpoint, or why would she even, you know, go through with that? Just my thought.
It's a pretty big deception.
Right. And I think on Laban's part, if you go into 19, he just flat out lies to Jacob. You know, he's already got bad intent, going to give him Leah after he served 7 years for Rachel. That's, you know, we get to see about what kind of man he is as we go. I did read the verses. He's a pretty nasty guy.
I think Jacob's met his match there, don't you?
Well, it also shows you how they treated women. They were just like non-entities, really,
Yeah.
chattel property, especially the guy's own daughters that he's just basically trading for 7 years of work, right? I mean, that's what he's doing. He's getting another 7 years out of Jacob of work, basically. Like, he's making a business decision, I guess. That's from what I can tell.
And Leah and Rachel even address that in either 31 or 32 when they're talking about leaving. You know, our father has sold us for 14 years of service out of Jacob.
And then Jack talked about being providence. Well, again, it's like, okay, what's God thinking? You know, he doesn't have a very high opinion of women either, or what? I don't know. It's just all odd, man.
I don't know, he created the first one.
Right. So it's all guess the means justifies the ends, I suppose, I don't know, it's just hard for me to, especially, you know, I guess we've progressed, most would say, I guess some wouldn't, but, I mean, we don't treat women as chattel anymore, right? I mean, it's just, thankfully, right, I mean, they're pretty much our equal.
Okay, I forgot what verse I got to. Verse 21, and Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go into her. And Laban gathered together all the men, and they had to feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he said unto Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve you for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, it must not be done to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 years. And if you ever wondered where Daniel's weeks are years, this is where a week is defined early on. It can mean more than years. It can be 7 different things. Anyhow, this is where Daniel gets his weeks as being years.
Really?
7
Is that, I
years.
mean, have you got a reference that goes, I mean, it makes sense, but I never thought about that.
No,
Just your analogy there. Okay.
Let's see, and Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also, and Laban gave Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. So did he get Rachel before the 7 years or after the 7 years?
I wonder the same thing when I read it.
Verse 28 kind of makes you think he had to serve, but then 30 says that served with him yet another 7 years after he got Rachel. So I think he married Rachel and then served the 7 years.
And I wonder if that was the practice, or was he lying just to get another 7 years out of him too? I don't know, my thinking as a police officer or something, you know,
Yeah.
a little deceit going on there.
Like you guys said, I think Jacob kind of mismatched. You know, I guess that was some payback for him, I suppose. Married sisters, you know, and then we see later in these next couple of chapters what that havoc that wreaked on the relationships. Which why wouldn't it, right? The jealousy that came out of it,
Yeah,
animosity.
that'd be bad enough to have more than one wife, but then to be sisters, the jealousy that had to be there. Would have been awful, I think. Okay, verse 31. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, and Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. So Leah's thinking by bearing him sons that he's gonna, that Jacob's gonna love her. And Reuben means look, so God looked upon her affliction. And so that's how Reuben got his name. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, and hath therefore given me a son also, she called his name Simeon. And that means hearing. God heard her, so that's what Simeon means, is hearing. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Now this time my husband will be joined unto me, because I have bore him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi, which means attachment. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, Now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. So Rachel's had 4, Leah has had 4, and isn't gonna bear anymore for a while. And remember, this is the 12 tribes of Israel that these ladies are having, and Leah has bore Judah, who's from the line of Judah.
Jesus.
Right. So Leah, that Jacob didn't want, is where Jesus come from. Questions or comments?
I think, I felt right away when I just read this, I didn't really study it, just to go over a little bit. But when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, which my little commentary said love less, which I don't think, if you can't hate somebody, I wouldn't think, and kick him to the curb, that'd be more likely, but, he had children by her, so the Lord doesn't look at things like we do, even though Rachel was favored. The Lord obviously has some type of emotion or compassion for Leah, because he lets her have, these 4 sons, not only, Judah, where our Savior came from, but Levi, the priestly tribe,
Yeah.
come out of her loins. So, God doesn't look at favoritism. I think I'm not speaking for God, but he didn't like that, because one was treated lowly compared to the Rachel, who was treated highly. God is fair.
I wonder what the women think about this whole situation.
Well, I
They're all
think
mute about the way God was using these women, and
well, I think with Leah, he saw that she was unloved, and I think he took compassion on her and gave her 3 sons to love, and gave her that fulfillment of being loved by her children, because to me that is such an important love.
I've got a question, or maybe a stupid question, kind of off topic, but I thought it was a sin to have, or, a sin or deceitful or whatever, to have more than 1 wife, but Jacob has 2 wives, so is he not kind of living in sin with having 2 wives?
Evidently, that wasn't the way it was in the beginning. It was Adam and Eve. But somewhere along the line, that was an accepted thing in the Middle East, to have more than 1 wife.
And then I think it split when the law came, and then you weren't allowed to, I don't know, I think there comes a point where they're not supposed to be.
Not supposed to, but they still do.
Yeah, but I mean, according to God, I think God says it's okay here, but there comes a point where God says, no, that's not right.
Okay.
And the hated, a long time ago, I read, and I don't remember where I even read it, but hate here is a comparative word. Compared to the love that Jacob had for Rachel, it was as if he hated Leah, but it was a comparative, and it doesn't really mean that he despised her. Like Jack said, we kicked her to the curb, because she ends up having 6 sons, and then Dinah, the daughter that's mentioned. So I'm like, I I think he had some compassion for her, but, it was much less than he had for Rachel.
You know, I think it was very obvious to Leah that, you know, watching, I guess, maybe his more hugging or whatever, you know, whatever that Jacob did, that she noticed that she wasn't loved as much.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too that God had so much compassion for these two women. I mean, we'll learn here in a little bit that they were idol worshipers. So if their knowledge of God was a head knowledge and not a heart knowledge, but yet God had compassion on them and allowed them both to bear children. So I find that interesting.
Well, I think their dad was a heathen. Right? I mean,
That sounds like it to me.
anything there about him knowing God, it's hard to read, really.
You know, I saw that because we know that Rachel's gonna take Laban's idol, but when Leah addresses, he said, surely the Lord, which is all capitalized in King James, looked upon my affliction, so they knew something about God, obviously.
I can't remember, I think it's in Joshua, but it tells about, Abraham's father. You know, they come from Ur of the Chaldees, and they were idol worshipers. That's where the Tower of Babel was, in that area. Present day, just south of Baghdad. And anyhow, they were heathens, but God evidently seen something in Abraham and called him out.
The whole thing kind of reads like a romance novel, right? Who's on first and who's having babies with who, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to. But I guess it's all like Jack said earlier, it's all God's providence to get to the place where you just said that Christ was born in the line of one of these people, and so it all started with Father Abraham.
And I don't guess they're really, they speak the Hebrew language, and it refers to them as Hebrews, which is Jewish, but, you know, Abraham was not a Jew. He was a heathen from the Ur of the Chaldees, like everybody else.
And they were calling these people Armenian, so is he got Armenian or Syriac or however, yeah, they were not.
Syrian, yeah. But anyhow, this is the beginning of the Jewish nation. Okay, verse 31. And when the Lord saw Leah was hated, I already read that, didn't I? I'm ready to start chapter 30. That's where I was at, not verse 30. Okay, Rachel has bore 4 sons for Jacob, and she is left barren. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in God's stead? Or in other words, what, do you think I'm God or what? And so he gets a little bit upset with her, and he says, it is God that's withheld the fruit of your womb. And she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go into her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. The bear upon my knees would mean in Middle Eastern custom that when Bilhah has a child, Rachel would hold it on her knees and show her total acceptance of that child being hers. It's not really Bilhah is hers.
You know what, how did that work out for Hagar?
Not so good.
Yeah. That went in
It's
my
like
commentary, by
round
the
two
way.
here.
So that's what that means. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and has given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Dan means justice. So Rachel has got justice by her handmaid having her a son. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, with great wrestling have I wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. Guess what Naphtali means? Wrestling, or wrestled, because she wrestled with her sister. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh, and shall call his name Gad. And Gad means luck.
Seems like Jacob's having all the fun here to me.
And it's,
I mean, do you think that this is, I mean, you know, wasn't God's will that Elizabeth, Abraham's wife, is that Elizabeth? I'm getting, Abraham's wife? Sarah. You know, that wasn't his will, because it never says that God says to do this. These women are taking it upon themselves, so I don't know, you know.
that's
It's
what,
all jealousy.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a good way to conceive children, but I don't know, is this God's providence? I don't know, I've got a lot of questions there.
it is, because he's starting the nation of Israel. This is the 12 tribes, so God's definitely, the one that's doing it. It is his providential will, I guess.
I mean, I don't think God agrees with envy, you know?
No.
Like Rachel was
No.
having envy
No,
over Leah's children.
But if these are God's chosen people, imagine what the unchosen ones were like. I mean, they were like Laban, I guess, or they had to really be heathen. I mean, he saw something good in Abraham, and then apparently he saw something good in Isaac, and then Jacob. So
Yeah, and maybe it's perhaps that way in all families. I mean, I saw envy in my own family, and I don't know about any others. Our family's not perfect. It's just part of life.
and I don't know, I guess Marilyn and you never did meet Peter Kite, did you?
No.
Okay, I think everybody else has except Jack. Peter Kite, his father, his first marriage, the lady could not have children. She selected him another wife, and he had 2 wives. And I met both of them when I was in Turkey, and they lived as a family and seemed like they got along.
But that was because of his status in the
Yes,
community, right?
well, not only him individually, but it was everybody. If you didn't have children, you wasn't anything.
Was he a Christian?
Not at the time, he is now. Did his father die? I know his mother did. I don't remember, can't remember all, but anyhow, it is still Middle Eastern custom.
Is it, they can still have more than one wife in the
Yeah.
Middle East?
And it's really funny. when Laban chases him down, looking for his idol, he goes into Jacob's tent. He goes into Leah's tent. He goes into the two maidservants' tent. And then he goes in to Rachel's tent. They all four have a tent behind Jacob's tent. That's the way it's set up. Even yet today, the Bedouins that pasture sheep all over the country, if they have more than one wife, each of them have their own tent, and he has his tent, and he goes to the tent he prefers. And that's the way it was with Rachel. He preferred Rachel. So it's,
So do
So-
you think the maids were, I mean, I guess it's the custom at that time, you think that they felt unloved or taken advantage of, or, I mean, these women are taking their babies and.
that's,
I mean, a woman is a woman, I mean,
yeah,
if you bear a child, it's one thing if you bear a child and it goes away to live with someone, but to bear a child and have it, I mean, was she feeding the baby? I mean, nursing the baby?
she,
So it still had that connection,
Yeah.
but couldn't call her mommy. I think that's sad.
it is, you know, how
You
did
look at it
that,
from a mother's standpoint, you know,
I
where I
am,
can't,
yeah.
you know, I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah.
but you know, the maid servants weren't left out because Jacob evidently visited their tent also. And, you know, they all bore children, so Jacob, but did Rachel actually take Bilhah's son and raise it herself, or did Bilhah? We don't know. And it all
I mean,
gets,
I would assume that they would, I mean, they've already got, well, you can't speak for Rachel, but Leah's already got a bunch of kids. How's she gonna try to take care of these others that
Yeah.
were born by her maidservant?
what time is it?
Yeah, we get bugged down with little things.
8, I didn't bring my phone, I don't have the time. Tell me when it's time.
Okay.
Okay, this is good discussion, I like it when everybody talks. I'm not sure how much all the talking, you know, we have so many questions that we can't answer. But anyhow, it's good to talk about all of it. Now I forgot where I was again. Anybody
14.
know?
14.
14. Okay, Leah left bearing and gives Zilpah, and she bears 2 sons. And Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher, and Asher means happy. And then the plot even gets thicker.
Well, you said, and it only talks about the sons. So somewhere in there, they're probably having daughters too that we don't know about, right? Don't you think? What's the chances they're all boys? They're not very good.
That, again, you know, but the only one that's mentioned is Dinah. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what I mean.
One,
Because we know
one out of
there's women.
12.
And it's the odds are probably, I don't know, I assume they're about 50-50, I guess. That's what seems how the world's populated.
And is there anywhere that tells when these children were born? I mean, how close are they in age?
That, I thought about all that,
That's
you
what I
know,
was
this
wondering.
sounds like, you know, day after day, they're bearing another child. It still took 9 months for them to have a child,
Well, if you think about
so.
it, the only stayed 7 more, all these children were born in the next 7 years, wouldn't it? After he gave Leah the first 7, when he gave Rachel in the next 7, all these would have been born in 7 years after that. Is that correct?
I never thought about that, but
Yeah.
it sounds like it. It does sound like it.
I thought somewhere he said he'd give him 20 years or something. But maybe-
Well, yeah, but the first 7, he was without a wife, and then the next 7 is when he got Rachel, and when they all started having kids, and then the next 6 years, is, him working for his wages.
Okay.
But anyhow, back to 14. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, "Give me, I pray thee, thy son's mandrakes." Mandrakes were thought to be an aphrodisiac. And she said unto her,
I don't think they need them.
and
Well, Rachel does.
and Rachel trades her man for the mandrakes. and Leah, anyhow, and she said unto her, "Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband, and wilt thou take away my son's mandrake also?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrake." And Jacob come out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, "You're mine tonight. Thou shalt come into me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the 5th son. And Leah said, "God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband." And he called his name Issachar, and Issachar means reward. So that's the 5th son or the 6th? That's the 5th one that she had. Oh yeah, verse 19, and she conceived again and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said, "God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons." And she called his name Zebulun, and Zebulun means dwelling. So Leah expects Jacob to dwell with her now, but it doesn't happen, as we all know. And afterwards she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb, and she conceived and bare a son, and said, "God hath taken away my reproach." And she called his name Joseph, and said, "The Lord shall add to me another son." Joseph means, "May the Lord add." It says actually in my footnote that it could mean he taketh away, but if you look it up in a good concordance, it says the Lord will add. Okay. Questions or comments up to this point before we start Jacob and Laban's bargaining? Well, about forgot, I wrote down some things. It seems like Jacob gets off kind of scot-free from all of his conniving with his mom and stuff. But in Jacob's having to go to Haran, he had to leave his home and his mother, and his mother dies while he's gone, so he never sees her again. And
You gotta put up these women fighting over him too.
yeah. And he's deceived by Uncle Laban, and Laban uses a veil and night to deceive him, like he used Isaac blindness to deceive him and make him think he was Esau. So all these different things kind of come back to haunt him. There's other ways, but anyhow, that's the ones I wrote down. Okay.
I don't know if we're gonna get into that, I don't think we will, but when he leaves and he's called Israel, Gabriel, is that when you think he gives his heart to the Lord then? I don't think it's in here tonight, or what we're talking about, is it not?
No, it's in chapter 32, I don't think we're gonna make
I
it,
didn't know if it was.
I don't think we'll make it that far. Anyhow, we'll go to Jacob and Laban's bargaining. And it come to pass when Rachel was born Joseph, and Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you knowest my service, which I have done to thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in your eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me because of you, or for your sake. And he said, appoint me your wages, and I will give it. So Laban says to Jacob, tell me what it takes to keep you here. And he said unto him, you know how that I have served you, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little that you had before I came, and now it is increased into a multitude, and the Lord has pleased you since my coming. So God has, or Laban has seen that God is blessing Jacob's labor, and Laban is prospering from it. And now shall I provide for my own house also. So Jacob wants to provide something for himself besides his wives. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, you shall give me nothing. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will feed and keep thy flocks. I will pass through all thy flocks today, removing from thence all the speckled, the spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and such shall be my hire. So he gets all colored goats and sheep and cattle. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when I shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled or spotted among the goats, brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. In other words, they'll be his, not actually stolen. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to your word. And he removed that day the goats that were ring shank and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his son. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. And Jacob, and this I don't understand what the sticks that he whittled had to do with it, but like Jack said, it's God's providence that's doing all this. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white streaks into them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutter, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, and they should conceive when they came to drink. What did the sticks have to do with it? I don't know either. And he put them at the watering trough, and when they seen it, they conceived. And the flocks conceived before the rod, and brought forth cattle, ring shank, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs and set the face of the flock toward the ring shank, and all the brown in the flock of Laban, and he put his own flocks by himself, and put them not unto Laban's cattle. So he kept them all separated. And it came to pass, whatsoever the strong cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutter, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in, so that feebler were Laban's, and the strong were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maid servants and men servants, and camel and asses. So Jacob got all the speckled and off colored. Laban got all the solid color, which should mean it's better and more purebred. But the way Jacob was breeding them or causing them to breed, the stronger were his, which were the spotted, the ring shank, and speckled. That's the way I read it. Anybody see something different?
It's hard for me to follow, but it looks like Laban and Jacob were kind of kept in the same cloth as far as business people anyway. And Laban, he don't think about anything but himself, right? I mean, the whole time he's conniving to get ahead financially or flock-wise or whatever, land, whatever was considered, rich back then, I guess. He's conniving the whole way.
At the expense of his own daughters.
Yeah, and then Jacob jumps right in there and he's giving back what he got, I guess, or trying to, after they've been together for, all those years, all of them together.
It is hard to follow all this and keep it all straight.
So is that what the whole taking the spots and adding the spot, was he just making one herd stronger than the, or one flock stronger than the other, basically?
Yeah.
So he get more in the end, I guess.
Yep. And when he leaves, his wives even recognize that there's no heritage left. Why would they stay with Laban? Okay, next chapter, Jacob's going to return back to Canaan. His separation from Laban. And he heard the word of Laban's son saying, Jacob has taken away all that word with our fathers, and of that which our father has gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not towards him as before. So Laban's quite mad and put out with Jacob.
Jacob got the best of him.
Yep. The conniver got the bigger conniver.
That's right. Yeah, crazy. Well, it sounded like they both did pretty well, but.
And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy father and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. Again, he don't say my God, it's the God of my father.
But he's listening to him, because he told him in verse 3 that, says he told him what to do.
And your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. And he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ring shank shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring shank. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring shanks, speckled, and bristled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring shanks, speckled, and bristled, for I have seen all that Laban has done to you. And I am the God of Bethel. And that's where this all started with God, was at Bethel. And he reminds Jacob that I am that same God, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowed a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out of the land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet a portion or an inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him stranger? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and the children now, and our children now then, whatsoever God said unto thee, do. So the girls agreed that they should leave Laban. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wife upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all the goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Padanaram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. Now we're getting into what they worship and who they are. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face toward Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled, and he took his brethren with him, and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Then Laban overtook Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in Mount Gilead. So they're all there in the same mountain. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captive taken with a sword? Wherefore did you flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and didst not tell me, that I might have sent you away with mirth? What's mirth mean?
Joy.
All right. So he wanted to send him away with song and joy and
Sure he did.
It sounded like it, didn't it? And hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. It is in my power, it is in the power of my hand to do hurt to you. But the God of your father spake to me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though thou wouldst need be gone, because your sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my idols? So the images are Laban's idols. They're idol worshipers. And that's what they come out of when they left the Ur of Chaldees. So they took idols with them, and they're still idol
would the idols themselves have had value outside of their worship, outside of that being what they worship? I mean, would they have been gold or silver?
They very well could have been,
And it just says idol, doesn't say how many.
right.
I mean, how many could she have hidden, I guess?
And there again, they don't answer all of our questions.
Well, later we know she was sitting on them, so she couldn't have been sitting on too many of them, I
Yeah.
guess.
And they couldn't have been too big. Time check,
8:25.
okay. Verse,
31.
okay, thank you. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure, or perhaps thou would take by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou find thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen the idols. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, into the two maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then he went into Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. And Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture, the camel's saddle, and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tents, but found them not. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. It is custom, and still today, that if even in Turkey, the younger people, when I know one time we was on a bus or a van or something, and an older cousin got in, and they stood and would give up their seat to the older person. It's still custom today that they do these things. So she begged her father's forgiveness for not getting up. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said unto Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found? All thine household stuff. Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy goats have not cast their young. In other words, they didn't miscarry, and they all had successful birthings. And the rams of thy flocks have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it, of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day of drought and the heat that consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God has seen mine affliction and the labor of my hand, and rebuked thee yesternight. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, these children are my children, these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, and unto the children which thou hast borne? Now therefore, come, let us make a covenant, I and you, and let it be a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took stones and set up for a pillar, and Jacob said unto the brethren, gather stones, and they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it, whatever you can say there, and Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed. And another name was Mizpah. Let's see, for he said the Lord, and Mizpah, for he said the Lord watch between me and thee, and we are absent one from another. So Laban's making a covenant with Jacob.
It's 8:30. It's 8:30.
Okay. And that neither one would cross the heap and do each other harm. And then in verse 53, the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their fathers, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up, kissed his sons and daughters, and blessed them, and Laban departed and returned into his place. Okay, that's the dealings of Laban and Jacob, and all of Jacob's wives and children, except one of them isn't born yet. There's one more to be born by Rachel. We're gonna quit. We'll pick up in 32 next time. What kind of questions and comments?
I just think it was, like you talked about verse 29, he never refers to God of Jacob. And Laban's talking to him, God of your father spoken to me yesterday night. He didn't, I see what you're saying as that goes on along through there. I just wonder if that gave maybe Jacob a little bit more beat in my chest, because I know you're not gonna bother me, because God has said that you're to leave me alone. Maybe that would give him a little bit more courage, I don't know. Just something I thought of.
This is the last of the, this is a total break from the family in Haran. Jacob or no one else goes back, that I know of.
Does Aramean and Syrian mean the same thing?
So he totally breaks. That's not right. Yeah, that's already happened. I got the thing, I was going backwards. Anyhow, this is a total break from the family in Haran. If no other comments or questions, we'll quit for the night.
Why were the idols so important to everybody, and then we don't really have a resolution what happened?
No,
My notes say that they were important because, where was that talking about that?
They're in 31, the middle part of it, 22 through.
Yeah, there it is, maybe that was, they were supposed to guarantee, fertility, the idols were. That's what the important, or that's what my notes say anyways. The important, they were supposed to guarantee fertility, and they guaranteed Jacob's right to Laban's estate when he died.
whoever has the gods has the upper hand.
Pretty much.
Ja-
But as Kelly said, why didn't Laban pursue mean, you don't know what happened, I never even thought about that.
The,
To these,
They just disappeared.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think they just,
like,
They
point,
were so important, they were chasing around after him, and he just gave up.
well,
I guess they could make more.
Yeah, that, what's the big deal, just make
Yeah.
some new
you know, I guess maybe after God talked to him, maybe he's more fearful of the real God than his idols, I don't know, I a lot of
That,
different thoughts there.
Laban did see God's hand in all of this and recognized it. But then his gods are still so important, he chased him for 7 days. So, we don't understand stuff like that. But what's people chase today? They may not have a golden idol that they put up on the shelf and worship, but, they have a lot of things.
It's not molded gods per se, but it's material gods.
Yeah.
I think that's our
It's the
gods.
materialistic chase and desire. Okay, I'll close this with prayer. Father, it's been so good to get together tonight to talk about your word and to learn more. It's just such a blessing to be able to read your word together and to learn from each other. And Paul tells us in Romans that whatsoever was written for time was written for our learning and understanding. And we just want to understand and learn more of your word and about you, Father. Thank you for these here. Just bless them with the rest of the evening. Bless them with safety in Jesus' name. Amen.
You think